back to Collective Couch Conversations, a candid series on leadership and organizational development. I'm Rebecca Ume-Crook, and I'm here with a dear friend, Kiran Yota, who's also been a Metis supporter for many years. And we're going to be chatting about my evolving leadership journey.
I'm so excited to get to be part of this. I feel like I've had small instances to get to dip into Metis and see you lead, but then also in our friendship, I've got to witness you leading as a runner or as a storyteller or various things. So I think this is going to be such an interesting conversation.
I'm really excited.
Me too.
Turn more towards you.
So why don't we start from how this all started? How did you have this moment where you decided that you're going to step into leadership, or was it something someone said, a feeling of responsibility? What was it that started you on a leadership journey?
That's such a good question. I think there have been many people who've planted seeds of possibility in me and watered them and nurtured them and pruned them when need be throughout my life. So I wouldn't say there's like a moment. And I still, Karen, it's weird. I feel like now that I'm transitioning out of my role as executive director, now's the first time where I've been able to look back and reflect a little bit and have other people serve as mirrors to me. Now I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I am a leader. But I don't think I ever was like, oh, I'm a leader. I see myself as a leader. I think other people would have said that. And I think, from teachers to friends growing up, that made me think like, I have a friend who really was like, people let themselves be organized by you. And so there are these kind observations that people have made that made me pause and go like, oh yeah, but I would still say, and like honestly, until the last 2 weeks, I was never like, yeah, I'm a leader. Like that almost makes me cringe. Yeah.
Okay, maybe you weren't calling it leadership yet, but what was like making you see these gaps, whether it was a photography club in South Africa or whether it was being a really young headmistress? What was it that was happening for you that was making you lean into what was leadership, but perhaps you weren't registering it as that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So 2 things. One, I think like a balance of both discontent and a sense of possibility. So it just, in my own life, being like, God, it's got to get better than this. Like looking around and being like, it shouldn't have to be this way. Whether it's kids from certain zip codes accessing certain learning opportunities, where kids, 2 kilometers down the road having a completely different reality because of funding, because of their families, because, of chance, or, being like, we don't have to be this lonely and isolated from each other, or, they're just kind of like a discontent with things that I observed in my own life would probably be number 1 for what actually like sparks me to do something. And then 2, I think that's predicated on this belief that I've had since I was growing up. I grew up in a faith tradition that really nurtured in me a sense that like more joyful and just worlds exist, and like we get to partner with our Creator to make that happen. And so I think the spiritual upbringing of my childhood always nurtured in me a sense of possibility, of co-creation, maybe of leadership even, towards that end, that we can be a part of creating heaven on earth.
Oh, I love that. What I find really beautiful is how you're able to see the discontent and then see the possibility and have those kind of at the same time. Yeah. Because I'm used to seeing people who get really weighed down by that discontent, or maybe completely bypass it in their leadership.
Yeah.
Could you speak more to that?
I think, so I had a colleague, Muthoni, who made this observation about me as a leader, and she said that one of the things I embody is Miss Lauryn Hill's "Everything is Everything." And so I'll speak to a personal example. I feel very lucky to be an immigrant here in Kenya. I came here about 8 years ago, and I had been living in South Africa prior and was a principal at a network of Lofi private schools, and I felt very integrated in community there, and I loved it. It was just a beautiful season of my life. And when I relocated here, at first, I didn't like it. I felt like it was really easy to get sucked into this expat community. I felt it kind of estranged from community and from authenticity, because I felt like many people I would met, and maybe this is my own insecurities. I felt like everyone I met was like, I am impacting 1 million people with an app, and if you are not, you are nothing. And I was like, I'm nothing. And then I also felt like I couldn't get beneath like the veneer of like, I don't know, just everyone feeling like they were knights in shining armor. And I was really unhappy. And I was kind of hijacked by grace, I would say, on Thanksgiving from, where the country where I come from in the United States celebrates Thanksgiving by gathering people over food and over gratitude at its best. And that night I passed around a little stuffed elephant and asked people to share what they were unexpectedly grateful for in their lives that year. And it was the year of Brexit and of Trump's election, and it just, like, 2016 felt just very difficult and challenging. And in the midst of that darkness, people shared that which was bringing them light. And it was a beautiful conversation with about 20 people that I honestly, before that dinner, was probably judging. Yeah. And I felt so, like I said, I felt like hijacked almost by a sense of grace and possibility. And after that night, I was like, I should just create the spaces that I'm longing for, or create and nurture the conditions that allow me, and I suspect others, to thrive, which is a sense of connection and vulnerability and authenticity. And so that, in the personal way, was that then became this platform called Caribbean Thursday, which is this monthly storytelling, art, poetry, music sharing space. And over the years, we've had 40 or 50 of these gatherings in our home, and hundreds of people come through, and it's been beautiful. And my life is so much richer for that, but it took me being in a place where I was like sulking for months, about feeling like, gosh, I wish this existed. And then it was like, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, are you going to sit here and sulk forever? Are you going to like create the world you want to live in? And so I think that I don't think I'm always consistently like a pillar of possibility per se. It's just that I think I've sat with my own discontent enough to know, like, there's got to be an alternative for this.
And I love that nuance, that it's not like, oh, I'm always this joyful.
Yeah.
But it's more like, I've sat, like you said, you've sat with that discontent.
Yeah.
So you said something about coming in as an immigrant, and my experience of Metis has been that it's so deeply woven into the community, and you have buy-in from the government, from the fellows, from people who just want to support you, from funders. How did you do that, coming in as someone who was from abroad, who was young, and had this big idea without any proof yet?
Yeah.
How did you get the buy-in?
I think that we created something that had many midwives, that was yearning to be born in the world. Metis is what the Greeks called deep contextualized wisdom and knowledge. And so many people with that wisdom and knowledge and knowing and buying from their own communities were creating teaching and learning opportunities for teachers and families and kids in their own communities. And we're doing so with great success, but also we're really lonely. And didn't always access the community and resources they needed to grow and have the impact that they wanted. And I think many, many, many people were identifying this as an issue, that those closest to the problem, and therefore closest to a solution, didn't have the clear pathways to be able to grow their impact. Many, many people have been saying that before, and many people have been feeling, that proverbial pinch in their shoe. And so I think that it really was a collective effort. It wasn't just like this idea I had. It came from listening to education leaders and entrepreneurs in my role as a program director at an education organization. It came from hundreds of conversations with other education leaders and entrepreneurs around the enablers and barriers to education innovation. And it just seemed, and now this is one of our core values, is further together. But I think that knowledge is innate within us. I think we know that we're better together, that we can learn better together, that we can have greater impact when we collaborate together. So I don't really think it was this idea I had and then it was born. It was many people were aching for this. And I think I feel really very, very privileged to have been part of the Metis story as part of that. And one of our fellows, Cliff, gives me this nickname of the Matchbox. And just you struck against me, and then a little fire is lit, but there are all these people that are all these matches. And they're leaning into their unique offering in the world, and they're leaning into what they can do to make the world a better place. And my small bit in this was kind of connecting the dots and creating a space where people could ignite fires in themselves and grow bigger and stronger together. So I really do feel like it was just me getting to be a part of something bigger that was already happening and will continue to happen.
Yeah, but there's something, I don't know, people trust you. Even when they shouldn't, maybe. Not that they shouldn't, but in terms of you coming in as this young woman who they could, maybe hearing it from someone else, they're more likely. But there's something in perhaps even how, and actually it links to my next question, was how do you even trust in this? So yeah, do you want to speak more to that? How were... And perhaps it's even more a reflection from you now. How are you getting yourself to trust in this? How are you getting people to trust in it?
Let me think about that honestly. Because I think there is this part of the reason, although I don't think we really had it easy. I think we didn't have proper funding probably until 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it was really rocky.
So the example I'm thinking of was at this handing the baton.
Yes.
I don't know his name, but the government official who spoke, he said, I met this young girl, she's sleeping on a couch somewhere, and I want to give her a couch in my house. And I was like, wow, you've touched this person to the point where he's yes, I'll support you. And you can live in my home because I want to make sure you're okay.
Karen, I don't know. Just people are beautiful. That is all I can say. That people are beautiful and people want to be good to each other. And I think we just got to create the conditions where that goodness can come through. And I guess part of what I was going to say is I feel deeply undeserving. Or not any more deserving than anyone else, right? And I think that's part of as someone who, on the sole basis of how I look, where I come from, I will be afforded trust that others might not be afforded. And that is wrong. And that is unjust, and that's racist. And in other situations, I'm not afforded trust because of my gender or because of how I present. And so I do think and that's part of what Metis seeks to be a part of changing is that we should be supporting local leaders, and that we really need to deconstruct and decolonize a lot of our funding mechanisms and support mechanisms, because they are often rooted in prejudice and bigotry and racism. And so I think, to be honest, in some ways, I have to recognize that I think that there was trust afforded to me, that there's nothing that I did to earn that per se. I think I show up in the world as myself, and sometimes that invites other people to be authentic in ways that can build trust. And we can get into that, but I also would be just remiss without saying that I just think that there are privileges that I have that allow me to operate in the world as I do. And I think that I want to be a part of changing that, and I want to be a part of leveraging the privileges that I do have to create a more just and equitable world.
Yes, I think you're right in terms of your privilege being a reason you get perhaps monetary support or a particular type of support, but people being I'll support you and you can sleep on my couch is something so much deeper than that. And my kind of reflection on this is because you were kind of going all in. You were saying, I'll sleep on a couch because I'm going to put my all into this idea. So it was inspiring other people to feel the same. So how did you bet on yourself and this idea and go so all in?
I don't know if I bet on myself. I bet on the opportunity to learn and grow. And I really think that I have needed Metis as much as anyone else has needed Metis. And I think it's really important for people to think, especially founders who are thinking about bringing something into the world, doing it from a place of I am the only one to do this for other people, kind of falling into this trap of saviorism, or I must do this, from a place of obligation, or doing it from a place of I have nothing else to do, feeling trapped. I think those are really good conditions for burnout, as well as just your offering in the world going a bit sideways. And I've seen that happen before. And I think, so for me, it was really important in the beginning days of Metis to really interrogate, why am I doing this? And it became important to me. I mean, in some ways, Metis was really selfish. I got to learn and grow as a leader and as a person. As I got to support other people to learn and grow, that is the adventure of a lifetime. That is a privilege of a lifetime. I have felt incredibly blessed. So in that way, and because I believe that flourishing is mutual and that our wellness is inextricably intertwined, I think it's okay that sometimes we do things from a place of this is going to be good for me, and it's also going to be really good for other people.
I actually think that's what makes it selfless, because then you're not looking for a particular outcome. You're I'm gonna, in your example, you're I'm gonna grow from this. So the process itself is giving back to you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the process, and I would do things differently. It felt very brutal to me that first year, and I realized I was operating, I totally acquiesced to this hustle culture. I was I was insecure and intimidated and unsure of myself. And I realized no one has a gun to my head. It's just me. It is literally just me. No one is making me do this. And I'm stressing myself out so much about this. And I forgot that, gosh, the process matters just as much, if not more than the product. So I know that now to be true, Karen, and there were probably glimmers that I knew that cognitively, but I didn't live it out. So that's definitely been an evolution.
Yeah, could you speak more generally just to your evolution as a leader? Because it's been 6 years, right?
Yeah.
And as you said, you started, and as many people I'm sure start, with this insecurity and instability, both internally but also in your external material life.
Yeah.
So how did you what was that journey like, and how has your leadership evolved as you've moved through those 6 years?
I've evolved a lot, and I think that, gosh, I'm so curious to ask my team too, and my community, how they've seen me evolve. We should do that next, guys. How have I changed? I do think I have more trust and delight in the process than the outcome, and more trust for how things unfold. I think that's because I've been lucky enough to learn from our fellows and from a community of other founders, and particularly female founders, women of color, I think, who are just luminaries and showing there are many ways to lead, and that maybe the models I had growing up that were very Western and male and harder, better, faster, stronger, that's not the only way, and perhaps that's not the best way. And so I think I've been able to learn from other people as I've been on my journey. That's a huge bit. And then I think I kind of had to fall flat on my face, to be honest. I think I had to I think about at the end of 2018, I just was so miserable. It was unsustainable. So I had to run myself into a tizzy and into a rut of pressure, a pressure cooker of my own making, and almost kind of hit a bottoming out where I was like, this is not good. And the vision I have for kids in the world and for leaders in the world, I want them to flourish and thrive. And do I get to be a part of that vision too?
Wow.
And I think I do. And actually, I know we all get to, as leaders, get to be a part of the visions that we have for the world. And it's not at the cost of our well-being. And no one has to sacrifice themselves as a martyr. And so I did I did a long couple months of that, and then realized wait, this does not feel good. This is not sustainable. I wouldn't want this for any other person. And I don't know my way out of this. But something's got to give. Something's got to change. And so I surrounded myself with other people who were kind of exploring other ways of leadership. I looked at our fellows and, started to give myself permission to play around with other ways of showing up.
And what's that been like? So I know one thing I always admire is you really show up as yourself. So you're this ED of Metis, which is super well recognized, but you come sometimes with your pink hair, sometimes it's purple. And if there's anything someone would attest to, is that you really just come as yourself and come as your whole self. So both in terms if we were talking about appearance, but you'll also say, I'm in a season which is hard.
Yeah, thank you for that, first of all, for seeing that in me, because that's actually something I do really value in myself and others, and now that I've come to be proud of. And I certainly wasn't always this way. I think, you know what, it also comes back to what I hope for kids. If I can't necessarily access it first for my own self, I think about what do I want for young people? And I want young people to be able to show up in their full humanity. I want them to experience a full range of emotions. I want them to be able to inhabit their multitudes. I want them to be great speakers and bakers and athletes and science nerds and botanists and whatever their hearts desire. I want that for them, and I want them to be able to explore different faith traditions and their romantic and sexual identities and gender expressions. Like, I want that for kids. And if that's going to be true, we have to live into that reality right now. So I realized, like, I need to stop being, and I think because of there's a recognition of the, I guess I just realized, like, if I want that world for kids, I have to live into that now for my own self, and I need to stop being so afraid of being my own self, because the more free I am, you know, Audre Lorde always says, we get free together, even if our shackles are very different from each other. So if I want our kids to be free, if I want our communities to be free and whole and liberated, I get to practice that now, and I get to bumble my way through that, and hopefully in that practice of freedom, it has a ripple effect.
And it's so beautiful because as a friend, I see you actually live this. But I also know sometimes, like, it's so easy in those moments to be like, okay, I know I want to do this, but it's too scary. Yeah. And then to, like, not.
Yeah.
So what have you, could you talk a bit about the journey of like, I'm actually going to practice this, and then sort of perhaps like little antidotes of moments that where you've just leaned into expressing that and all of who you are in your leadership.
Okay, so a couple moments come to mind. First is, I don't think I was in a season where I was not like 100%, like giving my 100%. I wasn't at 100% capacity. As a leader, I was really sad. There was stuff going on in my personal life with my family. I had gone through a breakup. Like there was stuff that was really impacting me, and I was like, gosh, I have tried other times in my journey to always have this big smile, and even when I'm not feeling it. And when I was a principal, when I was a young principal, I was 26, I thought, okay, people will feel more confident in me and about our situation, even though it feels difficult. I was like a principal at a startup school, and you know, we didn't have a playground. There was stuff that was not going right, and I just plastered the smile on my face and was like, it's going to be fine, guys. It's great. It's great. And it was like me saying, the sky is blue, when the sky was like gray. And people were looking at the sky and going like, we cannot trust this person because she's not seeing and acknowledging reality. And so it was actually feedback from that team later on that I was able to listen and hear that, like, we didn't actually feel like we could relate with you. You were like on another planet. We couldn't trust you. And I was like, gosh, that is not what I would want.
Right.
That was not what I would intend. Like, there's a great cost to then plastering on this fake Pollyanna smile. So I knew like that didn't work. And so when I was then in this hard season where things were difficult for me, it was like, well, could we try a different way? Because powering through with a smile actually can sever connections and opportunities for team building, honestly, and for collaboration. And maybe I'm stifling also my teammates' ability to step into their own leadership if I always feel like I have to have it together and that I'm doing all, like, maybe what would happen if I actually let some balls drop and other people could have the opportunity to pick them up? Like, what if there was such a blessing in what I thought was broken? And so this specific time, I remember I was just low, and I just said it. And luckily we have rituals at Metis that involve, we have a monthly candid check-in that's just brief, like highlights and lowlights from our week. And I just honestly shared my low. I was like, I'm just not doing great. Like, and I just showed up, and I'm I looked like a mess. I had puffy eyes. I wasn't sleeping. And I just was like, this is how it is for me right now. And I was met with so much compassion and support. And, so there are times where I've like maybe dipped my toes in the water. And even when it's not personal challenges, then when there are work challenges or times where I feel like I could have done better, I share them. Like I share that with my team. We have reflections on challenges and failures. And I really start to be transparent with my team now. So it's grown from not just the personal, but also the professional. And I've always seen that it builds trust. It builds connection. It builds belief, not the opposite. So I think about that, and then when I think about also identity, and I think about our broader fellows, and one time I was like pretty afraid. There was a few years ago at retreat, we were having conversations about identity, and someone I love and respect, and who also loves and respects me, said something that was pretty homophobic, and I identify as queer, and I didn't feel personally offended or attacked or unsafe in any way. So I went back though in that moment to go, if we're kind of creating this environment where these types of comments that could create spaces that are unsafe for adults and for kids, like I can't be silent. Like I have to take that risk to speak up, and it might come at great cost to me. I was worried. I was like, I sat there with like my pen trembling against this paper, being like, I don't think this is right, and I don't know if it's my place to say anything, and I don't know how, and I don't know if fellows will see me in the same way, and I don't know, they might lose respect for me. It's possible, and they might, that's illegal in this country. So I'm aware of that. There also comes with like, those are like consequences, unfortunately. But it felt like the consequences were greater of being silent, that I couldn't, like for me, it does go back to like, what is the world I want to live in? And I want to live in a world where people are free to be themselves. And so, but just to speak up and to say that, and to use my own personal identity and just trust the relationships that I have to basically say like, hey, that's like, I wonder if there's another way. I don't even remember exactly what I said, but it was very clear. And I have a colleague here who was like, texted me later. She was like, did you just low-key come out to 100 people? Well done. And I was like, yeah, I think I did. So yeah, I think that's my reflection of two times where I felt nervous and did it anyway. But honestly, that's kind of the whole arc of my leadership journey. I'm never ready. I'm never ready.
I was literally just thinking that. But in a much nicer way. I was thinking like, wow, you really have befriended uncertainty.
That's a good way of putting it.
And it's beautiful because it's so much easier to, for instance, go into an old paradigm of leadership where you're like, well, if I just be happy, then I know I don't have to like tackle that. But if you've said it a few times right now that you don't know what's going to happen, but you know what you stand for, and you're willing to be with that unknown.
Yeah. I think we have the opportunity to redefine what success is. That success in a situation could not be getting like, we don't often have control over an outcome.
Yeah.
But I do have control over my words and how I show up. So success could just be speaking my truth with kindness, as opposed to that leader changing her mind about her stance, right?
But also just being curious of like for instance, when you talked about just being open with the team, of being in a low season, being like, I don't know how this is going to go down, but being pretty neutral and open to either outcome, I feel like has given you this path to define your own leadership.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm so grateful for my team. They're just exceptional. And I say that, and I really believe that on the one hand, and then I'm like, are they the exception though? Or are like all humans actually like yearning for this and yearning for a different way to be together, to work together, to go through hard things together, to walk each other through life and do our small bit in making this place we call home a little bit better for everybody. I kind of think like I feel extremely lucky to have my team in this community, and I'm also like, I kind of think that there are many more people out there who would like, and maybe not do it like this way, the Metis way or whatever, but who want to create other ways of being in the world. So many more of us.
I'm laughing right now because I'm just like, this is the most Rebecca thing. I just very recently had an experience where I was like, I've just deeply trusted a stranger, and you're the example of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, trusting the unknown, trusting the I don't think we have an
just
option.
Seeing the best in people and the potential, and giving them that invitation to step into their goodness.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I see KK nodding his head. I would say that's something that I bring to a team is belief in everybody's abundant potential. Yeah.
And I just hope the team keeps that.
Yeah.
If they could bottle something of yours, I hope that's what it is.
No, it's in them.
And speaking of things to like bottle, what I really just wanted to go into other ingredients, some that I recognize, but I'm sure you can also add some of your own. So I have a few words, and then I'd love just your take on them. So the first one is joy, because I see that as a big part of how you show up. So what is your take on joy, and how have you brought that intentionally or maybe even just unconsciously into everything you do?
Yeah. I think it's so important. I think we're going to have a session on resilience. For me, that's like so core to resilience, to resistance, to creativity. I think new world building takes a lot of creative capacity, and I don't think I can be creative without joy. I don't think I can be resilient without joy. So it's really like this fuel, and I think it's almost, let me think about this. I think it's a discipline. I think I've had to train my eye and my heart and my posture to be bent towards that which delights.
Oh, that is so beautiful.
And there's a lot of it out there, but there's also a lot of sorrow. Not but, and there's so much. I think that's the other misconception people have about me, is that I'm always joyful. And I am often joyful, and I'm also under my bed crying a lot, or in the bathroom, or like just like literally floored. Because there's a lot of pain, and there's a lot of sorrow, and there's a lot of things that aren't right in this world. And I think if you're paying attention, it's kind of overwhelming, and I get overwhelmed by that. So I want to hold that and pay attention to that. And for me to even make it through the day without honestly wanting to obliterate my own self. So I'm so serious about that is that I just also have to hold that in one hand while really being disciplined about the light on that leaf right there, and how good a warm cup of coffee feels in my hands, and how great it feels to have a successful team meeting, or to have a call with a funder that went well. Like, just finding the little things to just celebrate, because there's so much to despair about. And for me, joy is not the absence of sorrow or of hard things. It's a posture of looking at, like, how we're all still entangled, and how in the midst of it all, I don't know, I keep looking, but how in the midst of it all, this sticky little leaf is blooming forth.
I love that so much, and I agree with you that, like, if you're numbing yourself to the grief of it all, then you don't have the aliveness for the joy.
Yeah, that's true.
So beautiful.
Yeah, you can't cut off like one part of it, of the emotional spectrum.
Exactly. So the other ingredient I had was intentionality, because I've seen you do things, even this collective couch conversations, you have the idea one day, the next week,
we're here,
it's happening.
Thank you, Magical Metis team, for making this happen.
So how do you do that thing where you have these, well, how I observe it is you have these pockets of deep intentionality and wisdom, and then you just go for it, and you're running 100K or whatever it is. Yeah.
How do I just go for it?
What's your take on that?
Man.
That being both of being very slow and intentional, and then also taking action.
Yeah, I definitely have a bias towards action. That's true. It's also baked into the Metis way of being. Again, I think it's. I stand on the shoulders of other people who are like, fail fast, fail soon, like go for it. It's okay. Just like try something, do it. Like create the world you want to live in. So it's in that tradition where I think I've been comfortable with knowing that I want to give something my best shot, and also knowing that, you know, doing something good is worth, you know, I'm butchering someone else's great idea, Karen, but like anything worth doing well is worth sucking at, honestly. So I think that just gives me, I do believe that, and I do think that just it takes practice of just like going for it. You know, again, and it doesn't have to be just in your professional life. Like you could try in any other area of your life, whether it's, you know, trying to make new friends, or going on runs, or like painting. Just like go for it and practice making something come alive that wants to be alive with you, and not just sitting with the seed inside of you forever, swallowing it up. Like, that's one thing, is the practice. And the other thing I think about for me is just viewing it as an act of service. That if I have something that, and if it's not just me, but like if we have something that we think could be good in the world or be helpful, like it serves people to just try.
That was literally my third one, like service and community. Your take on service and community, because it's so intertwined in everything you do.
It is really intertwined. Yeah. I mean, and different leaders are going to be oriented to it differently. What motivates them and what makes them come alive, and tapping into that, I think, is really important. And for me, like, one of my core values is communion. Like, I just value being connected for the sake of it. I do. And so if that, you know, and other people really feel animated by love, or feel really animated by truth, or feel really animated by trust or justice, and that's amazing. Like, tap into that. For me, it's communion. And that, when I'm sitting on something, if I can go back to my core values, I'm like, will this be in service of like greater connection and support for the whole? Like
Wow.
then go for it. And that actually, now that I say that out loud, makes me go back to like the hard things of being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like if this is gonna serve the whole, like just go for it. Like just try.
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful. This is so nice. There's
Your
so many
questions are
gems.
your questions are so generous. Thank you.
Okay, as we like come to a close of this, what is this conversation making you realize or bring to your awareness?
I think I just feel deeply, deeply, deeply grateful. And I feel this process of being part of birthing something, like I think I've said this to you before, and definitely to the team, that like you really do try to build an organization, and that organization builds you. Maybe it's not even an organization. Maybe you try to build, insert whatever that is, a practice, an offering, a community, a book. Maybe you try to curate an exhibition. Maybe you try to create a curriculum. Whatever that is, like I find that that act of creation is actually like an act of healing. The journey will be rich, and it might not be safe or stable the whole time. But if you're someone who like values things other than that, like it's so worth it. Yeah, that's what I'm feeling.
I think just having this conversation is just giving me a deeper insight on how deeply you live your values and the courage of that, but also the like being okay with, like as you said, like I didn't think, you said you didn't think you were a leader, or you did have moments where you weren't ready.
Yeah.
And the fact that you did it anyway, I hope anyone listening to this it makes them brave to do the same thing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it does pay to be brave. And I hope that like I hope that everyone knows that. And it doesn't have to be a whole organization. It could be like going for it and asking that person out on the date. It could be going for it and putting in that proposal.
I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier of like, is this going to be in service to, is me really believing that what you have to share is in service to a just and joyful world, to use your language. And if you think there's even a sliver of a chance there is, just leaning into that.
Thanks so much, Karen. I really appreciate this opportunity to just reflect. And if you're watching, thank you so much. It's been the privilege of a lifetime to be involved with Metis in this way. And I cannot wait to see how you are transformed by your participation in this community. And I hope that, what you sow, that you will reap a harvest in good time, and that you'll just be blessed by that. Thanks so much for this conversation.
Thank you.